Alright, hello everyone. The time is 8:28 p.m. and it is December 29th. We are almost to 2023. Man, does that feel good. Welcome to another update from Great Lakes Weather. I am actually giving a rather interesting update given the last week that we have had with winter weather, the blizzard of 2022. There is lots of sad news coming out of Buffalo about that particular blizzard, a lot of casualties with that particular event, which is very unfortunate to hear about. But it was a pretty intense blizzard for many areas. Great Lakes region, luckily, was not as intense, but we still did get quite a bit of wind and snow from it. But now we are shifting gears because it is now warming up. Okay, we are now in the 50s, all right, and things are actually gradually going to be warming up over the next couple of days between the 40s and maybe even getting up to 60 at some point as we get into the new year. But there is some severe weather potential to actually talk about. Even in farther southern Indiana, it looks like there could be some severe weather coming your way. This is actually a video of a shelf cloud I found at Cedarville University. This was a couple years ago, and this was a pretty strong shelf cloud that moved in, produced some strong winds, some heavy rainfall. Actually did prompt a severe thunderstorm warning at one point, but definitely a pretty cool shot to capture from Cedarville's campus. Make sure to subscribe to stay updated, get weather content like this, and be sure to check out the previous videos. We actually walked out on some pretty treacherous ice. It didn't actually realize how treacherous it could be and made the mistake of doing it. But we got some cool pictures, and you can check it out on the YouTube channel. And also you can investigate some of the information about the last blizzard that we had in this area as well. So make sure to check that out. We're going to dive right into it now, and we are going to begin with the SPC's latest setup. Let me make sure the window pops up properly. There we go. All right, so let's get started with this. You can see all the information right here. So this is the severe weather outlook for day 5. So that is actually going to be around January 2nd. Today is the 29th. So if you do the math, it is going to be January 2nd. So 15% risk for parts of extreme southern Indiana, and honestly, when an area like that is outlined in southern Indiana, that usually means that at least the marginal threat will extend a bit farther north as well. So this is just kind of giving a general idea based on what the current models are saying, the SPC's forecast for potential of some stronger storms developing within this region. So confidence is increasing. They actually were about to put in a 30% severe risk, but there's still some model variabilities in the timing of this event, and we'll look at that with the GFS and the Euro model in just a minute. So that is something that's we're currently needing to watch with this. But that is the current threat zone based on what the SPC has seen with latest model runs, and we're going to investigate the models and get an idea of what we could potentially see in some of these areas. So let's go to first of all, let's check out the height anomaly here. So you can see 500 millibar heights. We do have this nice ridge building in over the Great Lakes region. This is what's bringing us our warmer weather. Low temperature tonight is actually going to stay around 50 degrees here in Michigan. So that is very impressive. Something that's pretty impressive to see this late in the year. In fact, down in Illinois, they had temperatures close to 70 degrees with humid air. I mean, it's a warm and humid day in Illinois. It's like something you don't normally see, especially after the sub-zero temperatures and wind chills we had earlier with that storm system that moved in. But the ridge is here, and it's going to stick around for a couple days. Where there are going to be some days where things tend to cool down a little bit. We do have some slight troughs trying to push their way through the area, but the ridges will really stay in place, and that cold air is really going to struggle to get into that area as well. But later, as we get into January 2nd, January 3rd, you can see this trough back here, okay? This trough is actually what's going to allow this low pressure system to produce severe weather in the eastern continental United States. So you can see it kind of deepens over the central plains. That cold front kind of settles over this area here, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, southern Indiana. That area could see some of those stronger storms. And then the trough will finally push its way into parts of the southern United States, where you can see maybe some cooler temperatures. Not going to be nearly as cold as what we've seen recently. Looking in the long range, though, we do see that there might be a setup for more cooler air, not necessarily Arctic air, but cooler air. We do have that high pressure system that's going to stagnate off to parts of Greenland, and then the higher the higher pressure that's also going to stagnate across portions of the Alaskan area, Alaskan Peninsula. So that ridging could enable some cooler air to settle in the eastern continental United States around January 13th into 14th. And that's something that's long range, can't be sure about, but it does look like that could potentially occur based on what current models are saying. All right, let's get right to what is going to be happening with this event. Here's the temperatures that we're expecting. Again, it's going to be relatively warmer. You don't really see temperatures dropping too much or any below freezing unless you are in the Upper Peninsula. Anywhere farther south than that, it looks like it's going to be relatively warm over the course of the next several days. And then look on December 2nd or January 2nd, January 3rd, 2023. You do have that setup. You do have that warmer air. As at 1 a.m. it's going to be 58 degrees in southern Michigan and then 67 in southern Indiana. This is a very warm air mass for early January, and it's something that could bring some stronger storms to this area. So that is going to move through. You do see the cooler air begin to surge farther south as that begins to go through. Those freezing temperatures do return, and then as we get later in the season, you do see those cooler temperatures by mid-January really surging down into parts of the Great Lakes region. But places south of Indianapolis seem to be warmer than most, but still back to cooler temperatures. Not going to last it will last for a while, but not for a terribly long time. So that's really what I'm seeing there. Most of the snow has pretty much already melted off here. In some places, there are some places such as Allegan and Grand Rapids that still have some snowpack, but they got a lot of snow up there, close to 2 feet of snow. So not surprised that they still have some snow on the ground. Let's get to the weather models with the particular precipitation type. This is the GFS model, okay, the one of the models that we're examining for this. You got that low pressure system that's allowing for some marginal severe storms in parts of the south, and the cold front is going up through the Great Lakes region. Progressing it forward, you can see that the rain does kind of settle in across some parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. This rain will stick around. It's going to be kind of a little bit of a stream of rain, especially if you live in Indiana and Ohio. You're going to see quite a bit of rain, but Michigan is not going to see as much rain from this. It's going to mainly be down there. This is an interesting spot here for California. There's going to be a lot of rain in California over the next several days. There's going to be just a stream of rain that moves in, and a lot of rain just dumping over that area over the next few days into New Year's Eve, into New Year's weekend. So it's going to be relatively interesting what we see with that. But that low pressure system that's going to be bringing rain over the weekend or tomorrow in particular, and over the weekend is going to begin to move out. January 1st, New Year's Day, Happy New Year. We do have this low pressure system. You can kind of see it forming over parts of Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, not New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, those places. You do have those. You have that low pressure system setting up. That snow on the top side. That snow is going to stay off to the west, not going to really move into our area. And then you see the low pressure is beginning to deepen, beginning to interact with that warmer air that's surging in from the Gulf of Mexico. Then you get this line of storms that begins to show up on the GFS. Now, if you get a sounding, this is a marginal tornado risk. It's what it's currently showing. But if you back it up to where the storms initially begin to develop, the environment looks a bit more favorable for tornado development. If we go to, let's say we go to this graphic here, and then we check, you got that low-level wind shear. You do have some CAPE around 950, not a significant amount of CAPE, but it does show that there will be some instability in the atmosphere. You got lower cloud bases, high tops. You got it's an all right setup. You got your SRH is close to 300. SRH around 300 is favorable for a tornado setup, so there does appear to be some potential in that region. And then the front begins to continue to move farther to the east, and storm multiplicity increases a little bit up to 400. You still have a little bit of CAPE in the atmosphere. You get close to southern Indiana, where they're still showing some severe risk. The one issue here I'm seeing, you do have a lot of low-level wind shear and storm relativity. You don't have much inflow and you don't have much CAPE. That's really something that's not going to allow for severe storms to really take off. But again, if you get closer into, you do actually see a little bit of CAPE starting to form in there and some inflow, and the storm relativity is still there. So yep, that does check out as a severe weather potential for southern Indiana according to what the GFS model says right now. So, and it does show those storms kind of staying in place as they move through that area. And then into Ohio, there may even be some thunderstorms. Still got that low-level wind shear, still got a little bit of CAPE. Your cloud bases are low, inflows is not really there, but you do have your storm relativity. So even perhaps a marginal risk into Ohio may not wouldn't surprise me with what these models are currently saying. That will continue to progress. There may be some lingering severe potential out ahead of that main event as it moves through and that low begins to surge to the northeast. You could see it's a deepening low, just like the last one we had. Not as deep as the bomb cyclone we had, but still showing some thunderstorm development with this particular event here, even as far out as January 5th. And then you see the snow begin to surge back into here, maybe looking at a possible snowstorm for Ohio shortly after this, January 5th, 1 p.m. is what's showing on here. And then we're going to have to watch that as we get close to the long range. Then I'm not going to continue forward because these are very long range models up to this point. So that's what's currently on the table. Let's do a freeze frame on the time the event really starts to take off. So hour 1:02, when storms are really widespread, begin to form a convective line. Right about at this point, you can see pretty well-defined line of showers and thunderstorms here at this particular point. So let's have a look at this right here. So looking at the severe weather dynamics, let's take a look at our surface-based CAPE. CAPE values, again, they don't really show up as super impressive with the event until you get a little bit farther here. Then you can see the CAPE does actually kind of show up in southern Indiana, and there is some CAPE in southern U.S. as well. This is around 1 a.m. Tuesday when the line started to move into Indiana. It does show that there will be some instability pulled to the north and right ahead of this cold front. So it does seem to check out in that particular regard. The convective inhibition looks like there is some convective inhibition ahead of the front, so that may cause some limiting factors in the severe weather potential. And cloud bases are relatively low, not extremely low, but relatively low. The real thing that's really driving this event is the wind shear with this particular event. If you want to look at the winds ahead of this event, you got winds up to 80, 83 knots in the 700 millibar layer, and then going up towards where the jet is at, you do have that low pressure system, and then you have a pretty strong jet or trough ejection coming in on the eastern side of this particular event here. So that is going to allow for storm development and storm relative felicity to really increase, and that will enable these storms to be a bit stronger with this particular event. Something to watch, something the SBC is watching as well, so they will have good information on that. So moving, let's compare it to the Euro model real quick. So Euro, again, we're going to January 2nd here. It does show a very similar setup. You can see kind of a very, actually this is the GFS. My bad. What happened to my Euro? We're going to go back to my Euro here. There we go. All right, back to the Euro. Okay, so let's look at what the Euro is actually saying for this event. I have to go back to the previous model run because it does not go far out enough. So moving forward, let's get to January 2nd. We do have that line of rain showers associated with that low pressure system moving through and tomorrow and into New Year's Eve. And then by January 2nd, January 3rd, the Euro is actually putting it out at a later event. Again, that's why the SBC is saying that they're not going to put a 30% risk just yet, because it looks like it might come later based on what the Euro is talking about. But it still does show those storms developing. You get a sounding across parts of Arkansas. Does show that decent tornado potential. Lots of convective inhibition here, but CAPE values are about 173, but you do see there's a little bit of capping in this particular setup here. So SRH is still high enough to foster storms if they can get through that. The rain does really take off across parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. It does not show intense thunderstorms getting as far north as Michigan and northern Indiana. It does limit them to southern Indiana. You get a look at the sounding. Again, very similar. You still got that marginal severe potential. You do have that low-level wind shear, a little bit of convective inhibition, but still storm relative felicity enabling storms to still get some energy. And you do have that line that still appears, according to the Euro, with more CAPE. There's actually a bit more CAPE with this particular scenario here. But it does come out to be several hours later than the other model. So we're going to take a look at this particular graphic here, looking at the severe weather dynamics for this event. Mixed layer CAPE. Actually, let's go to most unstable CAPE. Here's what CAPE values look like. CAPE is getting, or instability, which is based on the amount of heat, moisture, sunlight, etc., so on and so forth. And you do have some CAPE reaching it as far north as southern Michigan with a lot of low of wind shear. But again, I don't think this setup's going to be favoring any severe weather in that area. It looks like it's going to stay far to the south. But CAPE values do get down to about 1,000 across parts of southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. So that is a change from the GFS model, and the bulk shear, you still have good amount of wind shear in place for this event, according to what the Euro model is saying as well. All right, we're going to stop it right there. I think we're going to have to wait to get a full confirmation of how this event's going to unfold. But for now, make sure you subscribe to stay updated. We'll try to do another update before this event actually hits, if it's really going to impact any part of the area, such as southern Indiana, which looks like to be the main area impacted, maybe even parts of western Ohio as well. So stay tuned for that information, and Happy New Year. 2023 is going to be here. Looking forward to another year of storm chasing. Hopefully not anything too impactful, but stuff worth seeing. So that is it, and I will see you all a little bit later.